When there is a protest, people go to sort of the centers, the historic centers, right? So there was a protest around the passage of Prop 8 in California in December, and there was a rally down by City Hall. And after the rally, I mean, we left the rally and sort of were walking around the city, and then I heard this chanting coming down 14th Street. And so, of course, trying to see what the chanting was because I love a good protest. And there were mostly young people in their 20s, some high schoolers, I could tell. Around 300 of them that had broken off from the rally and were marching. And so we joined, my partner joined them, we marched with them. And we were like, where are they headed? We couldn't figure out where they would go. And they went past the gay center in the village. That made some sense. But then they ended up in front of Stonewall. And they were shouting sort of remember Stonewall. And we were like, of course they would come to Stonewall. We hadn't thought of it, right? But they knew their history better than we knew our history, right? Because we couldn't figure out where they were headed, right? And of course, so the symbolic power of these communities, I think, remains. But the ability to mobilize people who are spread geographically. I mean, the internet can be quite powerful. I'm old school, so beginning to see the power of things like Facebook and so on to mobilize people. But the ability to, on an ongoing basis, recruit people and talk to people and give them that kind of sort of sense of belonging that mobilizes them. That's what I think is being lost as people sort of disperse. And so electoral, I think, is quite dangerous, but also in terms of sort of social movement organizing, I think faces a challenge in terms of perhaps there are other technologies we can use. Perhaps I'm just old school and I don't get it, right? But I think the ability to just walk down the streets and go into bars or go into cafes and say, hey, there's something going on, that's been lost. I think part of what the fight in California about gay marriage showed is that the Gay and Lesbian Task Force, the Human Rights Campaign, the kind of interest groups that have become what the gay movement, the voice of the gay movement, failed, right? They couldn't win in California. And I think as a response to their failure, what you're seeing is a lot more sort of grassroots organizing, uh, um, which is going to have to take a very different form, right? I mean, when Stonewall happens, people are literally running around the village, right, trying to find people to come down, right? People are knocking on people's doors, right? That's different than the way it would have to be done today. The gay movement and the Christian right have always been playing off each other, right? At least since the 1970s. That part of the response to the kind of activism of the Gay Liberation Front and so on becomes the formation of the Christian right. And they kind of have been, the agenda have been, they've been setting each other's agenda. And to some extent, right, the fight around gay marriage rights and so on, which a lot of people in the gay community find as either, assimilationist. And so what happens when now gay people want to get married, right? In some ways, that's an agenda item that was put there by the Christian right in 2004. And in 2004, they realized that one of the ways they can win is by putting a lot of propositions in state ballots about something that hadn't really been at the forefront of the gay agenda to that point, which was the marriage issue. Now, when people attack you, you defend yourself, and then you're in the game, right? And so that's sort of become the game, right? The problem with not playing the game is that they're there in the game and they will win the game if you're not there in the game, right? So this is why they're sort of in a relationship with each other about what the agenda is going to be. That's become sort of the big agenda item now. To the extent that that game is not played well by gay and lesbian activists, I think it becomes much more difficult for them to then to push for other issues, right? Whether it becomes employment discrimination, right? Or safe schools or other issues. So that's sort of the big ticket item right now, right? That's what, people are sort of mobilizing around. And really, at first it was the old institutions, right? The Washington, D.C. groups. But then there's been sort of a grassroots response to that, even though there's still like a debate within the gay community as to whether that's an assimilationist move, or can gays and lesbians, as they've always done, create different kinds of families, right? Whether having state recognition that's really a civil contract, which is about property rights and health rights and all that,